how do we recognize? How can we recognize if the behaviors that we're partaking in are not being perceived as an act of love? Like I think there's awareness for us to know that what we're doing is not really an act of love, but also how can we kind of notice that of the other person as well?
I guess pay attention to how am I feeling? Am I resenting it as I'm doing it? You know, like you're cleaning the house because you know it's going to make him happy and you're resenting that he's not helping you with it or whatever it is. How I'm feeling. That would be the main thing.
Okay, how
Or
you feel?
how am I feeling when I see him? I'm assuming a him, but it could be with a her, could
Mm,
be either one.
right.
Um, am I resenting him when I see him? Or am I feeling more loving? Because if you're doing a loving thing, it should help you feel more loving toward the person. Like when you
Mm,
do a loving thing for your pet, you buy a new little toy, you do a little something for the pet, you feel more loving toward the pet, not less loving. You're all excited to give the pet the thing, but if you're giving something and you're feeling resentful, then maybe you shouldn't be giving it.
mm,
But the other side of it is you could give with all the love and you feel so good, and that person just doesn't receive it well, just makes nothing of it, and you can be hurt. So that's where communication comes in.
mm. Let's talk about how we would deliver that communication. How let's say that that exact scenario that you just described happened. How would we deliver some communication if something wasn't received or if we felt kind of resentful while we were doing whatever it was we were
Yeah,
doing?
I think it's got to be delicate. Like you start with whatever your sweet word is, honey, sweetie, whatever words you use. You know, I got this for you and I thought you would love it, but you don't seem to be liking it. Is something wrong? Did you want it? Did you not want it? Just saying it in not an accusatory tone.
I think that's really important distinction. Very important. Yeah.
I have an example of that. I bought a gift that I gave to a friend, and then I went to visit her and I didn't see it there. And so I knew I had to say something. So I just said, "Did you use this thing?" And she said, "No, it was something to grow something." And she said, "No, I'm not good at growing." So I gave it to somebody else. I felt really bad about that, but I didn't make a big deal out of it. But I did ask about it because I didn't want it to be something where I'm resenting
Right.
that I don't see it and it was hidden.
Mhm. Mhm. What about in circumstances that aren't romantic with our family? What are some examples of um unloving things we do that we think are out of love with our family?
Well, I don't know if we think it's out of love, but comparing a child to other children, to their siblings, especially comparing them unfavorably to the other one. You know, the other one's doing much better and you're not. Why can't you be like that one? That kind of stuff. And you think you're helping the child to be more like that, but they're really feeling bad about themselves. So in
Mm,
the end, it's not loving.
mm,
Or you can be doubting someone's intentions. A child or someone does something and you interpret it as a bad intention when maybe it wasn't. Like they could feel really bad
yeah,
because you misunderstood them.
yeah, and kids get imprinted so easily, don't they? These little memories that they
All
jolt
you
them
have to do
into.
is look at children like Uvalde, the Texas shooting in the elementary school. I just saw a child interviewed today, just briefly, and he said He was in the other room. He wasn't in that room, but he still hears the sound of gunshot. He's still
Wow.
frightened. And
Of
like,
course, yeah.
that was an extreme thing, but it's the same in a family.
Mm,
You hear your parent yelling, or you hear the parent insulting you or
yeah.
ignoring you. And as soon as you're with somebody that ignores you the same in a similar way to what your parent did or didn't do, you get triggered.
Mm,
All of us. But when it happens at a young age, and if it happens for a long period of time, it's very hard to be different. You you're just triggered by that, whatever that is, neglect, or doesn't have to be severe abuse. It can just be being suppressed, being neglected, being misunderstood, having boundaries crossed,
mm, yeah.
or always being told the negative, like you're never good enough.
Right. Yeah, no matter what you do,
You
just hearing negative
got a
after
B
negative.
plus, you should have gotten an A, that kind of thing.
Right.
And you think you're encouraging the kid, but you're really helping
Mm,
them to feel inadequate or to
mm,
become driven, obsessive.
mm. Yeah, gosh, it's such a fine line, isn't it? There's just so many, there's so many things to think about. And yeah, I think kind of summing up what you're saying, it sounds like just be responsible for your own energy and what you're throwing out to your children, your partner, your family, anyone really.
And also, I forgot about mentioning being defensive. When somebody critiques you, they tell you whatever it is that bothers them, instead of immediately defending yourself. Well, I didn't mean to do that, and I don't always do that, and you do this, that, and the other thing. Instead of getting defensive, take a breath and hear what the person's saying. Maybe there's some value in it. Maybe I am doing something. Maybe I
Mm,
am interrupting all the time, which bothers the other person.
mm,
So also ask some questions of yourself and of the other person. Is it true that I'm doing that? Maybe you're not. So maybe
right.
go check with other friends of yours, other people who know you, and ask
Mm,
them, do I always do this?
mm,
That can
mm,
give you some insight.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, I think that's a great exercise. I just want to point out to anyone listening that for me, that kind of feedback really works from people I really, really trust and have a closeness with. Like, for example, my closest friends could tell me things about me that I would take very differently to someone who I didn't have that emotional closeness to. So I think you've really got to pick the people that you ask for feedback wisely.
and also pick the time. If I'm not asking for feedback
Right.
and you suddenly come at me, you always do this and you do that, we're
Yeah.
not having a discussion about things like that. It can be a big affront.
Yeah.
That, but so you have to also ask, do you mind if I say it?
Right.
Like, get permission. Don't just
Mm.
criticize it. We
Then
could
they have a
all.
then they have a moment to say no, thank you. No,
There's
thank
a
you.
guy that I worked with who told me he went to like a finishing school. I've never heard of a man going to that. And I was so impressed because he had really nice manners. And I can imagine it really taught him ways to speak, ways to not speak. And we could all use that.
Yes, I think that's really yeah,
Just some lessons in etiquette,
yeah,
relationship etiquette,
relationship etiquette.
because that could make a huge difference. Even if you're telling someone I have to break up with you, you can say it and do it in a way where they feel sad, but they feel valued. You know how wonderful they are, but you're in a different direction and you have different dreams or goals and you don't match. That's very different than just, you know, you don't do things the way I need someone to do it. Like you're not good enough.
Mm, yeah. Yeah, it's the same thing but very different, isn't it? Received very differently.
The
Yeah.
tone.
Hmm. I also think, like, if you do have an interaction like that where you do have to break up with someone, or you definitely know you're at the end of your journey together, I think it's also nice to leave on a nice note too. Leave a nice memory of that person. And so if you do it in the way that you described and say, like, I really like you, but maybe we're just going in different directions, it's really
But people
received.
don't do it that way. They break up in a text.
Yeah.
They
Yeah, or they break up
they
in
see
a
the
very
person
messy
again,
way.
they
Yeah.
have sex, and then they don't call anymore. So they just, you feel used and heard and confused. But
Yeah.
of course, you went into it. You didn't have to. If
Mm,
they come back like that, you don't have to let yourself go into it.
mm.
You have to let them prove themselves, so it goes both ways. It's not as simple.
No, it isn't.
It's, as you said, it's complex.
It is complex.
That's
Yeah.
why the more we understand, the more you understand yourself, what you like, value, need, what turns you on, turns you off, what your goals and dreams are, and also understand the other person.